Welcome to our International Student Brief program. Today, we have some intriguing stories lined up for you. First up, we dive into the chaotic landscape of Australia's student visa policies. While countries like India, Pakistan, and Kenya face high rejection rates, others such as China and Malaysia continue to enjoy high approval rates. The Australian government's use of the education sector to curb migration has led to criticism and claims that it will ultimately harm the sector in the long run. Next, we shift our focus to the United States, where many Americans find themselves in debt due to circumstances beyond their control. Health issues and job loss are major factors, and the structural reasons for borrowing include wages not keeping pace with the rising costs of education. It's a situation that demands scrutiny and systemic change. Lastly, we turn our attention to the United Kingdom, where the government's decision to restrict visas for international students is causing quite a stir. Universities warn that this move could lead to higher fees and even closures, but some argue that institutions should focus on selling education rather than visas. Please stay tuned for detailed coverage. The Sydney Morning Herald. Australia's student visa crackdown has created a chaotic landscape where some of the largest international student markets, like China, continue to enjoy high visa approval rates, while others, such as India, face record rejections. Chinese students were granted visas at a rate of over 97%, with other key markets like Vietnam, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Sri Lanka maintaining rates above 90%. In stark contrast, approval rates for India, Pakistan, Nepal, Kenya, and Nigeria have plummeted below 70%. Melanie McFarlane, executive director of the International Student Education Agents Association, criticized the government's inconsistent approach, noting that while there is a push to reduce reliance on China, Chinese students still see high approval rates. Professor Andrew Norton from the Australian National University highlighted the long-term harm of the government's legislation to cap student numbers, arguing that the approach sends mixed messages and hampers efforts to diversify student markets. The government's strategy has also led to confusion and frustration among genuine students, particularly from India, who are being turned away despite meeting financial and academic criteria. New York Times. The journey of managing debt often begins early for many Americans, with the significant financial decision of borrowing money for college made even before reaching the legal drinking age. The financial aid package that accompanies a college acceptance letter often translates to substantial debt, introducing teenagers to a culture of indebtedness that permeates the purchase of homes, cars, and even everyday items. U.S. households collectively carry over $17 trillion in debt, encompassing everything from student loans to credit card debt. Despite the normalization of debt, there remains a moral stigma attached to being unable to repay it, often unjustly blaming individuals for circumstances beyond their control, such as health issues or job loss. Structural issues like stagnant wages and high education costs also contribute significantly to the debt burden. This situation calls for a re-evaluation of how society has come to view and manage debt, particularly in light of the fact that college degrees have become akin to luxury products and medical debts are a leading cause of bankruptcies. Telegraph. The UK government's recent restriction on the visa system, which has been a major driver of the surge in international student numbers, has caused panic among universities and the political left. Critics argue that the clampdown will harm one of the UK's premier export industries and lead to higher fees for British students or even the collapse of some universities. However, this perspective overlooks the fact that many institutions have been exploiting the generous visa system to bolster their finances rather than focusing on providing quality education. The post-Brexit liberalisation allowed foreign students to stay and work in the UK for up to 2 years after graduation, significantly increasing the number of dependents accompanying students. This surge in immigration has strained resources and contributed to public opposition. The government, led by Rishi Sunak, has rightly curtailed this route, reducing the number of dependents by 80%. The higher education sector now faces the challenge of adapting to these new regulations, which may result in the closure or consolidation of some universities. This adjustment is necessary for the overall health of the economy and social fabric, ensuring that immigration policy is not solely dictated by the financial needs of higher education institutions. South China Morning Post. Dinabandhu Sahu's harrowing experience in Cambodia is a stark reminder of the perils many Indians face when lured by promises of lucrative overseas jobs. Sahu, who was desperate to clear his debts, accepted a job offer in Vietnam only to find himself trafficked to Cambodia and forced into cryptocurrency scams. His ordeal, shared by hundreds of other victims, underscores the grim reality of India's tough job market, where unemployment and lack of skilled jobs drive desperate job seekers into the traps set by human traffickers. Experts emphasize the need for stringent measures and better awareness to combat these fraudulent schemes. Sahu, now back in India, is actively working to prevent others from falling into similar traps, highlighting the importance of vigilance and thorough research before accepting overseas job offers. The Sydney Morning Herald: Australian universities face stringent new regulations as Education Minister Jason Clare introduces measures to cap international student enrolments. Institutions breaching these caps will face automatic bans from enrolling more students for up to a year, a move aimed at managing the influx of overseas arrivals and maintaining the integrity of the education sector. The legislation also targets so-called ghost colleges and bans education agents from receiving commissions for onshore student transfers. University leaders express concerns over the potential financial and reputational damage these measures could inflict. The government's broader strategy includes reducing net overseas migration to alleviate pressures on housing and rents, with migration set to be a contentious issue in the upcoming federal election. CNN: With retirement costs soaring, more Americans are considering moving abroad to stretch their savings and enhance their quality of life. The number of Social Security recipients living outside the U.S. has significantly increased, with some countries easing visa requirements to attract older U.S. expats. This trend reflects a growing interest in finding more affordable and enjoyable retirement options overseas. CNN invites readers to share their stories of retiring abroad, highlighting the diverse experiences and considerations that come with such a significant life decision. Guardian: FIFA has initiated a groundbreaking move towards allowing domestic leagues to play competitive matches overseas by forming a specialized working group. This decision, announced after a FIFA Council meeting in Bangkok, could revolutionize the traditional structures of men's club football. La Liga has already expressed ambitions to host league matches abroad by 2025. The working group, composed of 10 to 15 individuals from various sectors of the game, will operate independently but must adhere to principles ensuring fairness, such as providing adequate notice to fans and making provisions for them to attend matches in host countries. This shift signifies another step in the globalization of football, particularly the European club game, and follows FIFA's settlement of a legal dispute with American promoters Relevant Sports, which opened the door for these changes. Telegraph: The near breakdown of Britain's borders has sparked a crucial debate on mass migration. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak recently celebrated positive economic data, but questions loom about the effectiveness of current immigration policies. Small boat crossings and legal migration have surged to unprecedented levels, adding the equivalent of a city like Leeds to the population annually. Post-Brexit immigration policies have shifted the source of migrants from Europe to regions like South Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. Legal routes such as the graduate route and health and social care route have seen dramatic increases in numbers, straining social services, schools, and housing. The government's international education strategy aimed to boost education exports and attract 600,000 international students by 2030, a goal already surpassed. However, this has led to universities becoming reliant on foreign student fees, and the government has recently tightened restrictions on dependents, significantly reducing the number of international postgraduate applicants. The debate continues on whether to further restrict immigration, balancing economic benefits with public sentiment and the sustainability of social services. Telegraph: Rishi Sunak is likely pleased with the Migration Advisory Committee's (MAC) report showing that restrictions on visas for dependents of foreign students are reducing migration numbers. The chair of MAC suggests that net migration could fall to between 150,000 and 200,000 by September, potentially boosting Sunak's electoral prospects. However, further reductions in net migration pose challenges, particularly for sectors dependent on foreign labor. British universities, heavily reliant on international student fees, face financial risks without this revenue. The current system, aimed at attracting the brightest and best, has seen growth in graduate visas from lower-ranking institutions, whose graduates often earn less than domestic counterparts. This situation complicates the government's goal of reducing migration while maintaining educational and economic standards. The debate highlights the need to address underlying policy issues, such as frozen tuition fees and low pay in the care sector, which have driven reliance on foreign labor. As the government seeks to fulfill its promise to reduce legal immigration, it must navigate these complex trade-offs. Telegraph: The Migration Advisory Committee, MAC, has firmly opposed the UK government's proposal to reduce the number of foreign graduates allowed to stay in the country post-graduation. They asserted that the two-year graduate visa route does not compromise the integrity or quality of the higher education system and found no substantial evidence of its misuse. This visa route, which permits international students to remain in the UK for up to 3 years after completing their studies, is crucial for universities to offset financial losses from domestic students and research funding. The MAC warned that further restrictions could lead to course closures and, in extreme cases, the collapse of some universities. Despite pressure from ministers and senior Conservative MPs to cut the route as a measure to reduce net migration, the MAC emphasized the economic benefits of international tuition fees and the risks of potential university failures if these routes were curtailed. Guardian. The UK's Migration Advisory Committee, MAC, has found no widespread abuse of the graduate visa route, countering claims from senior Conservatives that it was being exploited for job market entry. The MAC recommended maintaining the graduate visa entitlement, which allows international students to work in the UK for 2 to 3 years post-graduation. This decision was met with relief by university leaders, who warned that removing the visa could lead to financial instability in the higher education sector. The MAC noted that while there are concerns about the exploitation of international students by some agents, this issue is separate from the abuse of the graduate visa route. They highlighted that the graduate visa is essential for attracting international students, who help cover the financial shortfalls in teaching and research. The committee urged the government to implement a mandatory registration system for recruitment agents to safeguard the integrity of the UK's higher education system. Australian Broadcasting Corporation. Rachel Gibson, a single mother of 7, felt like she had won the lotto when she found meat marked down to 74 cents, saving over $150 on groceries. Sharing her find on a Discount Shoppers Facebook group, she joined many Australians struggling with the rising cost of living. Rachel's strategies for saving include buying in bulk during sales, deep freezing food, and stretching meals with inexpensive ingredients like beans and lentils. Other families and individuals, including international students, are also finding creative ways to cut costs, such as shopping in cheaper suburbs, avoiding unnecessary expenses like haircuts, and relying on discount stores. The cost of living crisis has driven more people to discount grocery stores and food banks, with services like Foodbank Victoria and the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre seeing increased demand. These organizations highlight that while savings hacks provide temporary relief, they often only serve as band-aid solutions to more significant financial struggles. Nikkei Asia. Japan's major restaurant chains are increasingly turning their focus overseas to counteract the adverse effects of a weak yen. By the end of fiscal 2023, the top 10 Japanese restaurant companies, excluding McDonald's Holdings Company, Japan, had about 13,000 locations abroad, making up 42% of their total locations, up from 29% in 2019. Companies like Yoshinoya Holdings and Zensho Holdings are aggressively expanding their presence in foreign markets, with plans to open numerous new locations. This shift helps mitigate the high costs of importing food due to the weak yen, as prices are easier to raise abroad, and earnings in foreign currency can offset forex risks. For instance, Skylark Holdings is expanding its Shabu Shabu hot pot restaurants in the US, sourcing ingredients locally to reduce forex losses. The overall strategy of expanding abroad not only helps stabilize earnings but also boosts global interest in Japanese cuisine, which is evident from the rising number of Japanese restaurants worldwide. The Sydney Morning Herald. The Australian government is urging universities to reduce their reliance on students from China and India and to channel international students into courses that address domestic skills shortages, such as nursing and healthcare. This directive comes as part of a broader federal plan to cap the annual intake of international students, aiming to moderate the rapid growth in student numbers, which reached 671,000 by March 2023. University leaders have expressed concerns over potential funding gaps, but some, like La Trobe University Vice-Chancellor Theo Farrell, support the policy for its potential to diversify student demographics and expand healthcare education. The government plans to negotiate with educational institutions to set maximum intakes and diversify the student population by attracting students from other regions like South America and the Indo-Pacific. The draft law, set to be introduced soon, also includes measures to increase student visa fees and financial thresholds, aiming for a balanced and sustainable growth in the sector. New York Times. In an effort to help 20-somethings navigate their financial challenges, the New York Times offers a 5-day financial boot camp designed to address key issues such as managing expenses, paying down student debt, and choosing the right health insurance. Financial experts Ron Lieber, Tara Siegel-Bernard, and Mike Dang provide their extensive experience to guide young adults through practical steps to improve their financial health. The boot camp encourages participants to list their financial anxieties and goals, gather information on all financial accounts, and complete daily tasks to make incremental progress. This initiative aims to equip young adults with the knowledge and tools they need to make informed financial decisions and build a stable financial future. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.